Imagine walking through a forest just after a storm. Broken branches, fallen trees, the ground still soaked with rain. At first glance, everything seems chaotic, like life has been interrupted. But if you look closely, you'll notice small signs, tiny sprouts pushing through the debris, leaves still holding droplets of water glistening under a ray of sunlight breaking through the clouds. It's not immediate. It's not complete. But there, amidst the destruction, life insists on continuing. This is what God's grace is like in the midst of loss. It doesn't erase what has been broken, but it sustains what has the potential to grow. When you lose someone you love, pain feels like the only real thing. It's as if everything around you is frozen in that moment, and the thought of moving forward seems almost like a betrayal to the memory of the one who's gone. I understand that. You were created for love, and love inevitably carries a weight, the suffering of separation. Grace, however, doesn't remove that weight but offers a way to carry it. It's like a bridge over the chasm of pain, built not from forgetting but from transformed remembrance. You know, many think of God's grace as a shortcut, something that quickly frees us from pain. But that's not true. Grace is, in fact, a long road, often winding, but always leading to hope. It doesn't erase the storm, it teaches you how to navigate it. And navigation isn't possible without wind, waves, or moments when you feel like the boat might capsize. I see the tears you shed in silence, the ones no one else notices. And I want you to know, God sees them too. Every tear carries weight, meaning. They're not a sign of weakness but of depth. Only those who love deeply feel loss so profoundly. And this is where grace manifests, not as an instant solution but as a constant presence. It's in the friend who insists on taking you out for coffee when all you want to do is isolate yourself. It's in the song that plays on the radio at the exact moment you feel like you can't go on. It's even in the silence, in that brief moment when, without explanation, you feel a small sense of relief. You might wonder, but Jesus, why does pain have to exist? Wouldn't it be easier if we didn't love so deeply? And I tell you this, the depth of your pain reflects the depth of the love that was shared. The love you had, the memories you created, that doesn't disappear. God's grace helps you see that the end of a life here is not the end of love. It's like a flame that, though seemingly extinguished, leaves warmth and light that continue to shine within you. When I walked among you, I saw loss up close. I remember Martha and Mary weeping over Lazarus' death, the despair in their eyes. Yes, I wept too. Not because I didn't know he would live again, but because their pain was real, and I was there with them, in the midst of it. God does the same for you. He doesn't ignore your pain, he enters it with you. And that's where grace becomes most evident, not in the absence of suffering, but in the certainty that you never face it alone. I know this isn't easy. Recognizing grace in the middle of pain can sometimes feel impossible. But I want you to think about this. If the pain you feel now were a devastated field, what might begin to grow there? What seeds could be planted from the memory, the legacy of the one you lost? You don't need all the answers today. Just allow yourself to imagine that pain is not the end, but a place of transition. Remember who's speaking to you now. I know what it is to suffer. I know what it's like to feel the weight of abandonment and loss. When I was on the cross, my cry was genuine. My God, why have you forsaken me? Yet even there, grace was present. It didn't take me down from the cross, but it made redemption possible afterward. So, when you ask where God's grace is, look around. It's in the love that remains, even in absence. It's in the strength you discover within yourself, strength you never knew you had. And above all, it's in the promise that pain will not have the final word. Because God's love, the love that connects you to the one who has departed, is eternal. But now I ask you this, can you see the sprouts growing among the ruins? When you allow yourself to look closely, those sprouts among the ruins begin to make sense. They're not just signs of life, they're signs of resilience. Each new leaf, each small growth in the midst of destruction, is a silent response to the chaos, saying, I will continue. The same is true for you. God plants seeds in the soil of your pain, seeds of hope, of renewal. But here's the truth, they need to be nurtured. God's grace is the light that nourishes them, but you must make space in your heart for them to grow. Often, what prevents this growth is the resistance to let pain run its course. I'm not saying you should ignore or minimize what you feel. On the contrary, pain must be lived through because only then can it be transformed. It's like a turbulent river that needs a channel to flow. If you try to dam that river, it becomes stagnant, but when you let it move, it finds its way, and you discover that you're capable of navigating it. God's grace is the map that guides you through this process. It doesn't prevent you from getting lost sometimes, but it shows you that there's always a way back. And here's the most beautiful part, grace transforms not only you but also everything around you. When you allow hope to grow within you, it spreads to those near you. It's as if your life becomes a reflection of divine light, illuminating paths for others who are also struggling with their own losses. Think about how many people need this same message right now. Perhaps you've already noticed someone close to you going through similar pain. Sharing your experience, no matter how small it seems, can be the act of grace that person needs. This is how God works, through human connections, through mutual support. Isn't it incredible to think that your pain, which once felt so isolating, can be used to heal others? I want you to know that even when you don't see immediate results, God is working. Remember that the growth of a plant doesn't happen overnight. There's an entire invisible process before it becomes visible. Grace works the same way. It quietly works deep within you until you're ready to see the fruit. You might ask, but Jesus, how can I trust this process when everything feels so hard? And I say to you, trust the one who created you. God not only knows your pain, but He carried it with you. He understands the weight you feel and knows what is needed to lighten it. Sometimes all He asks is that you keep going, even without fully understanding why. Because movement, even small, is where life happens. Look at the examples around you. How many stories have you heard of people who, after a loss, discovered new meanings for their lives? This doesn't happen because they forgot those they loved, but because they learned to transform that love into something greater, something eternal. The memory of the one who passed never disappears. It becomes part of who you are, shaping who you will be moving forward. I know this doesn't erase the longing. That's a part of the journey no one can avoid. But God's grace reminds you that longing is, in fact, evidence of a love that was deep and true. And love, by its very nature, doesn't end. It expands. It connects you to God, to eternity, and to the one you've lost. So let me challenge you, what can you do today, no matter how small, to allow that love to keep growing within you? Perhaps it's an act of kindness towards someone. Perhaps it's setting aside a moment to talk to God, even if only to express your pain. Or maybe it's as simple as taking a deep breath and saying, I trust. You don't need all the answers now. God walks with you every step of the way, even on days when the path seems impossible to tread. And know this, your suffering is not in vain. It's the soil where something new can be planted, where hope can bloom. Now, I invite you to share this message with someone who needs to hear it. It could be a friend, a relative, or even someone you haven't seen in a long time. Sharing this message might be the first sprout of grace in their life. And don't forget to follow the channel to keep up with more messages of hope and inspiration like this. Our next playlist will bring more answers from Jesus, messages that can transform your life and renew your faith. This is just the beginning of a journey that continues. After all, the question that always remains is, what will you do with the grace you have received?